What is going on, survivors? We are back for another mod review. In today's mod review, we're going to be going over the Safe Waters version 2 mod. This is going to change your way you deal with water situations in this game. As you can see, I have this blue hue coming off of me, and that's because, well, we'll explain why. Anywho, so this mod is basically going to kind of like a quality of life for your water exploration, underwater stuff. I think this is super useful. Anyway, you're going to craft this Safe Waters crafting station. This is essentially where you make everything. We can open this up so I can show you. And it's unlocked default at level 1. It's just fiber, metal, wood, raw metal. So it's pretty cheap to craft, and you can craft it fairly quickly. There's a lot of cool items that it has, but we're going to go over something first specifically on this crafting station. All of these items we're going to go over that you craft here. But in your resources section, there's actually a bunch of resources that you can actually make from normal things. So we can make sand from stone. We can make vegetable seeds that you pick up off the ground. You can turn those into oil. We can use sand and spark powder to make pearls. We can make angler gel out of charcoal, organic polymer, and sap. We can make black pearls out of metal, polymer, and silica pearls. You can make biotoxin out of the absorbent substrate and narcotics and mushrooms, and then you can also make the ammonite bile from gasoline, flowers, and stimulants. This is cool because sometimes certain water things are really tough to get, kind of a pain in the butt to try to grab onto and hold. I like that these are here. This is neat, and this, I guess this would also help out in areas where maybe something like getting ammonite bile is like really hard where you're based up at or what you're doing. Being able to just craft it like this is awesome, I think. It's a really cool idea. Plus, I guess this would also apply to maps that didn't have these resource items. You could actually make them that way, so you have that option as well. All of these different items do a lot of different things, and we're going to talk about all of them and how they work. So, first two are right here. These are like these little fishing net things. So the first one is this scrap skimmer. So basically what this does, you place it in the ground. It doesn't need fuel. You just throw it on the ground. It does its thing. Basically what it does is it collects things that you would normally get from fishing, with the exception of blueprints and actual fish meat. So any of the random resources that you can grab from fishing loot tables, you would potentially grab in here. You just throw it here and let it go, and it just does its thing over time by itself. Make a bunch of these and just set them around and not have to worry about it again. You have the fish catcher. This one just does the meat, and as you can see, it does prime fish meat and then regular fish meat as well. This one pulls all the meat for you. So if you're nearby water, any sort of water source where you can place these guys in, you just throw them right in the water and you're all set. You don't have to fuel them. They just sit there and do their thing. And let's go back and check the crafting on these guys. So it's fairly easy to craft these guys too. It's pretty cheap. But you can easily make a bunch of these and kind of scatter them around and pick up a lot of the little resources. The scrap skimmer is a little bit different because you need leech blood or actual horns from like a rhino. So if you don't have access to those things, the skimmer might be kind of a pain in the butt, but leech blood and horns aren't too terribly hard to obtain. So you can definitely make that feasible. And everything else is in my inventory and or in the water. So let's go check all that stuff out right now. So I might have used a couple of these things that are in my inventory. And if you notice, some of these you can only use when you're actually in the water. So for instance, the little candy on my number 2 slot gets grayed out when I step on the land. It's specifically made for water. What this one does, and we'll talk about all of them, but let's tab over to the inventory just so you can see. So you can make a fish repellent that will distract nearby just small game, nothing big. So up to like a megalodon sort of style, they're going to leave you alone. And you can use this and all of the sea creatures ignore you. So this makes taming a lot of the passive tames like mantas a lot easier. But then this also just keeps you from, if you're trying to accomplish something underwater, it keeps you being bugged by anglerfish and piranhas and all that good stuff. So heavily useful for that day-to-day harvesting resources and or taming certain things. We're going to skip over to this one, which is kind of used in conjunction with it, which is the sea monster repellent. This one is specifically made for all the bigger creatures. So keep in mind that if you attack any of these things, they're still going to come after you. But you can use all these things to do a bit better underwater exploration and to grab a bit more resources without having to watch over your shoulder every 5 seconds. You have the Lazarus Candy, which restores a little bit of your oxygen and your stamina. And these things are basically like health potions. You can keep using these cumulatively over and over and over and over while you're underwater. So these three combined will essentially let you stay underwater unbothered for an indefinite amount of time as long as you have those things. As you can see, I have the icons down here at my bottom right. The two that were with timers are ones that I physically just used, and that's the timer on them to tell you how long it's going to last before I have to retake it. The two that are just printed there are printed there for a specific reason, and that's because of these two things here. So this repellent diffuser is something that you can make on the crafting station. We'll talk about all the crafting requirements in a moment. But basically, this thing is fueled by the sea monster repellent. So you throw the sea monster repellent in there and then you turn it on. What it does is it grants you that buff, but it's like an area of effect. And as you can see, I'm coming out kind of far, and it's still going on. It's still going. Oh, right around, right about there. Right about there is where it starts to cut off at. But the nice thing about these buffs is that they apply to your creatures as well. These apply to your tames as well. So if you have an underwater base and you just don't want to have to deal with the things coming in and attacking you every 5 minutes, you can have one of these posted up and you won't have to worry about it. You can pick these things up, and again, they're charged with the sea monster repellent. Over here we have these Lazarus lamps. Now obviously these provide a little bit of light already. It's significantly more light in really dark areas, so it definitely works pretty well. It looks similar to when you put angler gel on like a standing torch. But anyway, when you open these guys up, they'll be powered by the Lazarus candy. And we'll go back through the workbench and tell you exactly how to craft all this stuff. But basically what this does is it provides a certain light source, but then it also provides me the Lazarus candy buff while I'm underwater, as long as I'm near it. Now if you notice, my oxygen's not going down at all, and nothing's attacking. It's because I'm in range of this guy as far as the oxygen stat goes. Now if I move outside of this, we get far enough outside of range here, and it should go away here soon. Not too far range. There it goes. So now my oxygen meter's going back down. Now if it goes too far down, I can use that candy. And as we see it trickling down, I can eat the candies underwater, and my oxygen goes right back up again. And you can keep using this, kind of like a veggie cake timer, really. Veggie cake, health brew, it's kind of like a ticker down like that. But like I said, it also adds a bit more stamina back to you as well. So you're going to recover from stamina loss and oxygen loss with this guy, and you can just keep reusing these things. You can use the fish repellent in your inventory underwater as well, and these are stackable. You don't have to wait for the timer to be up. You can just hit it and just let it go. Same thing with the big monster one. You can just keep tabbing it. You can just keep hitting it and have it stack on top of itself, so you don't have to wait for it to get all the way down to 0 before you're able to use it again, which I really like. I hate having to try to watch that timer down to the second like you have to do with like bug repellent, so it definitely makes your life a little bit easier. The rest of the stuff that we have to talk about is item specific. We have this cool shirt skin that goes over top of your chest, and it basically works like a scuba suit. You attach this to your shirt like so, but it basically works like a scuba suit, allowing you to stay underwater for a significantly longer amount of time. And as you can see, it's applying that Lazarus bonus to me as well while I'm wearing it. And it is a skin that just goes over any sort of chest armor, so any chest armor it just goes right over top of, and it's kind of like a scuba suit, but it's a skin, so you don't have to worry about having a scuba suit and hearing that obnoxious sound the whole time. Like, it just helps you out a lot. What else do we have? We have the goggles here. The goggles help with seeing underwater like 10 times better. What we can do is we can swap these out and get rid of them. You see how it's all cloudy all the way out there? And if I put these guys back on, it's super distant. So it's kind of like the swim clear scuba goggles that we talked about, but it's definitely stepped up a tad. We can see way out there in the distance, which is super useful. Still, and really don't have too much of a peripheral vision issue as well, so that's kind of nice. Next up we have the hide flippers. So the hide flippers are kind of like an early access way of getting scuba flippers. They're just going to increase your movement speed in the water. So pretty simple. This is how fast I'm moving with the flippers, and if I take them off, you can see I'm definitely not moving near as fast. The flippers will totally slow you down on land though. You will not be able to go very far at all with these guys when you're on the land. You do not move. That's kind of the point behind them. They're specifically only meant for underwater stuff. So lastly, what we have is the boots of sinking. So these are interesting because what they do is essentially, well, not wholeheartedly immobilize you, but kind of immobilize you. So if I use these, I sink to the bottom and I can't jump. So if your goal is to be on the bottom, like on the floor of the ocean for whatever reason, these boots help. Like I said, you won't be able to jump with them. You'll just be able to walk with them. These apply to on land too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you just can't do anything. I can't jump. Jumping doesn't work. But you can sink to the bottom, which I guess helps if you're trying to harvest stuff by land, or maybe if you're trying to build something underwater and trying to stand still. It's a little bit easier to have that stability. So I get it for sure. It definitely has its uses. Alrighty, well that's pretty much it. We can go back to the bench and check the crafting requirements on this stuff, but this is a super useful mod. I like it. It makes the water exploration a lot more forgiving than it currently is. A lot of these things don't really cost very much to make. Like the hide flippers, you need a pair of hide boots, some hide fiber, you got it. The fish repellent, this stuff can get a little bit expensive because you need to have bug repellent beforehand, and then you still need to have rare flowers and mushrooms on top of it. The glasses are just crystal fiber hide. The skin is, again, a little high end. And the reason why it's so high end is because it's essentially a scuba tank. It doesn't have a durability that you can throw on your armor, so this is why it's expensive to make. So 125 absorbent, subtract 1 element, 40 fiber, and a golden duck egg. We have the repellent diffuser, which is kind of like a higher end thing, so I get why this is a little bit higher as far as what resources you need to make it. Same with the Lazarus lamp, it's kind of like that midway in between, but definitely reasonable. I don't think any of these things are too out of the park for what they are. I think the stuff that's really good is spec'd out to be, you need a decent amount of resources to make that happen. The monster repellent, you need bigger, you need the fish repellent on top of it, and you need sweet veggie cake. So you'll need that to make all that stuff. To make your boots of sinking, you need hide, metal, and obsidian. And to make your Lazarus candy, you need bee honey, oil, and silica pearls. I think this is all pretty reasonable. I don't think any of it's super easy or super hard to make. I think it makes sense for what you get out of it. I think I'm on board with it. It makes sense to me. All in all, this is a pretty cool mod. As far as if you like ocean exploration, living in the ocean, I think this is a really cool QOL sort of water mod that definitely caters to those that like to live out in the water. If you have like an ocean platform or an underwater base or whatever the case is, I think it applies, and it just kind of helps you because a lot of those underwater animals can just be really, really obnoxious, especially when we're talking about like the piranhas and the mantas. And if you're on a map that has an ungodly amount of megalodons coming after you, it's super, super, super useful for all of that. So I highly recommend this one. And I'm looking forward to actually messing around with this one a bit more. I think this might be one of my go-tos here in the future. Anyway, guys, that's it. That is the Safe Waters version 2 mod. We will have a link to the workshop page in the description of the video, so you guys can check that out at your leisure. As always, guys, hit that like button, hit that sub button, and I will see you on the next one.